Hello, everybody. Welcome to our energetic relationship and twin soul aspects free webinar, free healing circle webinar here on this beautiful Sunday in Colorado, United States. My name is Yona Prentice, and next to me is
Jeff Casper.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and we'll begin straight here with the webinar program. Judging by the amount of questions that we received, I want to real quick just warn you, we may go over time, so please bear with us here. I hope we're all able to deal with the technical aspects, and we're still having people logging on here, so I'm killing time a little bit here till everybody's set up. Some of you are very familiar with the software through other schools, other teachers, other organizations, and some of you are new to the software. So please don't freak out. There is a function that allows you to text us, and it's the question button. Yes. Let's test this real quick. Can you all hear me? Just type in yes. Okay, I'm getting okay. Wonderful. Thank you for the feedback. Okay, now as you most of you know, the quality and so forth has a lot to do with the quality of your internet connection. So or your telephone connection. So if things break up, if you lose connection, don't panic. Okay, we're recording the session for all of you, and you will all receive the entire webinar video, including the slides, in your email, probably a little bit, few hours after we're done. Yeah, so this is how you can text to me if you found this, and nobody else will see this. So if you have questions during the session, then just type your question. Just keep it short, because I have to read and talk at the same time, and that makes me go a lot of times. And when I listen to the recordings, I could pull my hair out, how many M's there are. But this is just part of the deal. I'm doing these online meetings, these online webinars. Here at transCODES, we do these regularly. So some of you come very regularly, weekly or bi-weekly, to our Sacred Self-Healing or Heart Warrior webinars. And some of you are new to this kind of connecting with other people. I just want to say real quick that the way we've designed this is interactive. So we want your questions, and we have a lot of questions that were sent in ahead of time within the last 6 weeks. And I did get some last minute questions today, but I can't promise I got them all. The last time I checked was like probably half an hour ago. And you have the opportunity to speak into the microphone and ask questions as well. So I'll indicate that. And in between, you can always send questions, and we'll try to read them out loud anonymously, the texts that we get. Yeah, why do we do this? transCODES, is pretty much designed for energetically sensitive people, for empaths. And we all know that the air gets kind of thin, when it comes to communicating, when it comes to talking about things. And over the years, doing the healing work as energy coaches here, Jeff and I have noticed a huge demand for just communication, just asking questions, just real simple connecting with people who have, similar things that they're going through. And of course, we also have sessions that we offer, ongoing group sessions and so forth, various different programs that allow us to work with groups or with individuals. So I'll probably speak a little fast here in the beginning just to get through the slides, and forgive me for that. If we get questions in between, then I will interrupt or finish my sentence and come to your question. just so that we have the opportunity to keep it loose and not like me going into a lecture. There is a function in the software that allows you to raise your hand. And I have a raised hand right now, which means that somebody would like to speak into the microphone. I see your raised hand, and I will get to you as soon as I finish the introduction, okay? And if you change your mind, if you don't want to talk, then click on it again so your hand goes down. But anyone who would like to speak and ask a question directly is welcome to do so. Okay. Energetic relationship issues. In the healing work that we do, it's not often that we are asked specific questions in regards to the energetic aspects of relationships unless we work with a person in individual coachings. So it is in the nature of the subject that we don't really like to share these rather private things in public. And we get this. But we also want you to understand that there is a good purpose behind sharing things, and sometimes even moving out of our comfort zone here. So I looked through the list of people who are coming to this webinar, and I know a lot of the names. I know the general energy of the people here, and most of them are genuinely interested in the subject and solutions for the subject. So please know that there is no question too stupid to ask, okay? Just so you know, we work with energetically sensitive people 24/7, 365, and this is what we do. All right, so my name is Yona Bindis. I'm the founder and sort of the head coach, if you will, of transCODES. I write most of the articles, and I train energy coaches here and also facilitate most of the sessions. But over the years, there's many other energy workers from around the world that have joined me in this endeavor to assist empaths and energetically sensitive people. And so it's really, transCODES is really a group of energy workers and steadily growing, because the number of people who need assistance, who need guidance, not necessarily like telling them what to do, but oftentimes just sort of a safe space to exchange and to get some tips and so forth, to work through some of the issues. We are also energy readers, which means we're not clairvoyants. That sometimes gets confused. But we're energy readers. That means that we can read people's energy fields. We can do clearings. We can help them to work through aspects that are typically kind of difficult to address. Next to me is Jeff.
Hello, everybody.
And would you like to share your sort of what you do and what your purpose is?
Yeah, just like Yona, I'm also an energy worker and a coach, and have been involved in some form of coaching or another for quite a few years, either through, I first started out years and years ago, personal training, and then it went into sales and management, where I did a lot of coaching for salespeople and managing, and kind of got back into the spiritual side of things because I really was missing it, and I just really wanted to get into that at some point in my life. And so in my early to mid 30s, I got really back into that full bore and got involved with energy work, healing work, consciousness research, and have kind of just been kept going with that, and have really enjoyed working with you on the transCODES side.
Yeah, so we both have a counseling background, and we have a lot of scientific experience. And for us, the work with you extraordinary people, to a degree, is probably one of the most exciting things that we've ever done in our career. And so we take this very seriously. This is not about telling people what to do or convincing them of our beliefs. This is mostly about working through really deep issues that sometimes cannot be addressed with regular counseling or physical work or emotional work. And so bear with us here. The perspectives that we can offer can really enhance some of the viewpoints and some of our all of our practical issues in life.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to what is really important to us in life, it boils down to our relationship, and not just our relationships with other people, like the romantic relationships that we have, but the relationship we have in interaction with any other beings or energies, so to speak. And so for most of us, the problems that arise in our practical lives through our sensitivity, through the way we see things that is often not compatible with how the world sees things, can be responsible for a lot of our personal unhappiness. So this free webinar here is dedicated to those relationship aspects, and we'll go actually pretty deep. I'm not sure if I can get all the slides done, and some of the work, will need to be done in actual sessions. But I'm trying to give you guys an overview here and try to just sort of cue a few things for you so that you can, in your own contemplation, in your own meditation, even if this is part of your regular inner work, sort of go into new directions. And I want to start the webinar here with this quote, the pathway to self-love. And you may ask yourself, why is she bringing this up first thing? Well, the reason for that is that our outer relationships are the reflections of our inner relationship. And most of you are probably aware of this. So we do ask ourselves, oh, why me? And why do I have to have these experiences? And why are my relationships so painful? Or, in this and this and this manner. But ultimately, it comes down to our ability to love ourselves. And this may take a few things away here. We're offering a spiritual view, but we are also bringing in very hands-on practical perspectives. Mm-hmm. So unconditionally loving ourselves means overcoming our inner belief that we're flawed and that we have to be in a certain way or do certain things in order to deserve love. Self-love means that you made yourself to the subject of your love. And the essence of this is really that we don't have to be like anybody else. We don't have to do anything to deserve love. Love is our God-given right, and it permeates through us. And the the intensity or the power that the love energy, so to speak, has that flows through us depends on how freely we can allow that to happen, how freely we can allow this flow to happen. And unfortunately, through the conditioning that we experience, through programming, inner or outer, there's a multitude of factors that we'll get to in a minute that influence our ability to love or even feel or perceive love from others and through ourselves, has to do with sort of our ability to connect with ourselves, our ability to connect and to be present with our hearts. And these factors that we're going to get to here in a minute are typically things that block that flow of love within us, and that blocks some of the abundance, some of the manifestation of love in our relationships, in our romantic relationships, and of course also affects our ability to meet someone on that same energetic frequency, or to meet our vibrational match in form of a twin soul or twin flame. So the objective of this webinar, real quick, is to increase our awareness and to educate on the energetic view of relationships. And some of the things will be surprising to you. Some of the things will maybe make you angry. Some of the things may not match up with your beliefs. That's okay. All really we're asking you to do is stay open and take out the things that resonate with you, that give you a new perspective, and just drop the things that don't work for you right now. We also want to encourage you to become an active participant in your spiritual journey. A lot of us still see themselves kind of oppressed, sort of the minority, kind of like not really fitting in. And so we feel ourselves sort of on the outskirts, like fringe dwellers of what's going on in life, and everybody seems to be so happy and seems to have it all, and we're the only ones. Well, part of our job here, or how we see our purpose, is to encourage you, is to empower you to become an active participant, and of course, to share and ask personal questions. This is a quote I've added here just for the recording, to just jump right into the deeper aspect of consciousness and what we want to talk about here. If we knew better, we'd do better. But in order to know better, we need to understand first. And so to understand better, we need to connect within and allow our divine consciousness to dissolve these limitations of our ego, so that we can begin to understand what our ego cannot know. There's something very profound in that, and that is that there obviously is or at least, that's my view of it, that there is a limitation that we all have, and that comes in through our ego. Ego has a different meaning for different groups of people, for different perspectives. I'm not typically talking about the egomanic aspect of ourselves. When I talk about ego, I talk about that part in us that is linked with our thinkingness, with our ego mind. Mm-hmm. Okay, the parts that we see sort of from the perspective of our thinking self. And for those of you who've already done a little bit of consciousness work know that there is something beyond that. There is a self that is not necessarily connected to the ego, that comes from a place, typically through the pathway of connecting with the heart, that offers us a deeper perspective on things, a deeper feeling, and that very much sort of cues that the remembrance of experiencing ourselves as a soul with a body, as opposed to how we typically experience ourselves in our daily TikTok lives as bodies with a soul, somewhere there. And consciousness work allows us to experience ourselves as souls with a body, and to tap into that knowing beyond our ego mind. So really all this is supposed to say, and also kind of promise to you, is that there is a whole entire universe beyond our intellect, beyond our mind. And of course, when it comes to relationships, you will understand that, there's a different level of looking at things. And we are trying to look at relationships here at this very moment in this webinar from the perspective of our higher consciousness, our true self, our higher self, Christ consciousness, however you want to call it. A lot of it has to do with your sets of beliefs, but we're not really going into that. So what we're trying to address here is how to really tap into the deeper energetic truth of things that that has nothing to do with our beliefs or our intellect. It has nothing to do with our metaphysical understanding even. Now, granted, if we have a little bit of background in esotericism, in alchemy, metaphysics, and so forth, some of the concepts or some of the explanations will resonate a little more with us, and it'll be easier for us to to feel familiar with such a way of thinking. But there's so many other perspectives. There's a quantum mechanical perspective on energy. There is a spiritual view on energy, and we're trying to combine all of this. So just stay open. We really try to convey that energetic view here. At the same time, we're also trying to broaden our understanding of true love and intimacy. Not necessarily, intimacy in the sense of sexuality. That's a whole different subject. But intimacy in terms of connection, true connection between people, and the energetic dynamics that happen when we connect. Also, and this will be a big part of this session, and hopefully your questions will address that too. We would like to look at the relationship problems and how they relate to, or how they link to energetic problems or the energetic view of things. And last but not least, of course, TwinSoul and twin flame relationship aspects. I often use TwinSoul and twin flame in the same context, so don't be nitpicky here. These webinars are public, and we kind of have to pick up people, from any type of level. And then, of course, the live questions and answers. All right. Just so you know, in the deeper aspects of everything that we'll talk about, we will not be able to cover in this short session here, but we have sessions, we call them healing circle sessions, where we work through these individual aspects with people in groups, in remote sessions, and we meet afterwards in a webinar and discuss our experiences, and we have a forum for exchange, right after sessions, during sessions, and so forth. So I just want you to know this, that because I often get these comments, like, well, yeah, you say this and this and this, but then you don't explain how to do this. Well, I simply don't have the time in those webinars. Those are processes that sometimes take years within a person, and using remote energy drastically reduces the time that we can work through these processes. But I cannot possibly give advice in 5 minutes on how to resolve issues that most people on this planet don't even scratch the surface in their entire lifetime. All right, so why are we even here, and what makes this group of people you so unique? As we all know, there is a larger movement going on, and we just call this evolution of consciousness. Although I don't really believe that it's an evolution of our consciousness. I think that we all have this ability to tap into our higher consciousness at all times. But the movement, or the thing that is happening globally, collectively right now, is that it's happening on a larger scale. And we may have not reached like a critical mass yet, but there is a lot of sort of change in paradigm, change in viewing ourselves, seeing ourselves, as humans. We're like 100 years ago, we saw ourselves as like flesh and bones, with a soul, and then we started understanding germs and bacteria and so forth, the unseen, and then we started to understand genetics, DNA, and so forth. And we're moving beyond all that now, and we're starting to see ourselves as energetic beings in interaction with nature and interaction with another at all times, whether we can see it or not. And the uniqueness of this group of people here is that most of you already have these experiences, whether you can explain them to yourselves or not, that you're already in that process. And real quick here, what is evolution of consciousness? Well, really, what it means is that we're moving from the pure, sort of surviving our life physically to, you know, being able to interact with others and feeling loved and giving love to beginning to see our self-value, our self-esteem, and beginning to express who we truly are, transforming all our fears, working through some of the higher concepts and giving and receiving, and then learning how we can add meaning to our existence, and finally, developing purpose and possibly making a difference in our lives, but also a positive difference in the lives of others. And for some of you, it will lead to a calling or to the need to be of service to others. So this is what evolution of consciousness means. It doesn't mean like if you don't feel like you want to be of service of others that you're not evolved. This is not what this means. It's just a natural progression. So once we kind of passed our personal ego stuff, if you will, then our energy begins to expand. And as our energy begins to expand, it begins to provide for others. So it's kind of like, when you have, first you fight to get enough food for yourself, and once you've figured out how to get enough food for yourself and you become able to create an abundance of food, well, then it's just in our nature to begin to share, with others. And of course, this has a lot to do with the individual level of consciousness, but we won't be able to get into this. Coming back to our relationships, I'm assuming that all of you are aware of the fact that interaction with other people is not just through words or body language. I'm assuming that you know that there is an energy exchange between people at all times, and that actually, for the most part, this is confirmed through research. The number is something around 85% of the energy exchange between people actually happens in the unseen, in the unconscious. So only 15% of what we perceive through others, of others, what they perceive of us, is really done through our senses, through our words, and through what is being seen. And so when it comes to the deeper aspects of relationships in the energetic view, it's a lot more complex than we think it is. Mm-hmm. There is a lot more to us interacting with others, be it our loved ones or, just sort of random people on the streets. And of course, we cannot cover everything here. I want to get straight to one of the biggest issues that we experience as energy workers, and that we frequently have to, or not have to, but assist other people with. When it comes to those unseen, those invisible interactions between people in relationships. And we have some interaction of relationship here in the background. If you look at the picture here, you see something that I call solar plexus love. And for those of you familiar with chakras and so forth, it addresses or it illustrates a certain type of love that is very common. Mm-hmm. Probably like 90% of all relationships,
if not more.
If not more.
It's just it's a misunderstanding. It's also projected upon us, and I'm sure you'll get to that. It's projected almost everywhere.
So it's a type of love that is based on what we want.
Passion, infatuation, all this kind of thing.
Yeah, but even things like, like the typical stuff, mm-hmm. the props that we want, how mm-hmm. we want our relationship to look like, how we want others to see ourselves. It's a type of relationship that most of us know, which has a lot to do with sort of being an extension of who we are, mm-hmm. in a nutshell. So only the minority of us actually engage in relationships where we have no clue why we feel attracted to the other person. And we get to that later. But most of us actually have some kind of, and please don't misunderstand me here, some kind of ego gain, ego payoff from being in a relationship. And most of the time, we're not even aware of this because it actually fulfills the deeper purpose of filling some of the holes that we have within ourselves, tending or soothing some of the wounds that we have, just really very simple. We kind of need another person to feel ourselves or to feel whole. And unfortunately, if you look at movies, if you look at songs and so forth, it's actually promoted. Mm-hmm. So this is just a very brief overview over the energetic consequences of engaging in a relationship that fulfills other purposes than just love. Okay? Now, there's no judgment in that. Mm-hmm. And by the numbers, you can tell that, this is common. So chances are 9 out of 10 people that we meet, will want that. And if 2 people meet and are aware of this and want this, then there's nothing wrong with that. The problem only arises if one person wants something that the other person wants. And because these things are mostly in the unseen, in the unconscious, it's also very difficult to communicate them. So here I just want to give you a little bit of ammunition, to see what the issue is from an energetic standpoint. If we come together with someone who we think we have to love and who we think we have to please and who we think we have to do something to be loved or to keep them or to keep the relationship alive, whatever it is that we think we need to do, we are pushing energy into that other person's energy field. Mm-hmm. And of course, vice versa. Mm-hmm. And it's called projection in energy work. And it's very common and so forth. There's no judgment in that. But every time we push our energy into another person's energy field, we are basically manipulating the other person's energy field. And this happens every day.
It's part of life, yeah.
All day long.
Yeah.
It's, one of our teachers used to say, kind of like a battle of resonances. Mm-hmm. So the way we perceive our life, the way we perceive our relationships, be it with our family, with our romantic partners, or just friends, and so forth, random people, is that we have to sustain, we have to defend, we have to feed, we have to ward off, we have to compete, we have to make some other examples.
Well, you just got to keep adding. It's a constant addition. It's driven by projection. It's driven by control. It's driven by all these things. So what happens is if you stop giving to that, and I'm not talking about being open and intimate, but if you start giving to those pushes that happen from the solar plexus level, typically the relationship kind of just falls apart.
Yes, and the reason for that is not so much that the love died, but the reason for that is that no one can really keep up with this. No. Eventually, we run out of energy. And then that's the point, often we feel this first, in the physical connection. Mm-hmm. And then in the heart connection, we start feeling like strangers. And then eventually we're just too exhausted. We're just not able to keep that projection up anymore. And the reason for that is that the energetic interaction happens here from our ego level, from our solar plexus, from our willpower, from what we want to gain, from what we want to control, and so forth. And a new view of looking at an energy exchange in a relationship, in what we call true love relationship, is a relationship that's not based on this kind of push of energy, that's based on our heart field. And our heart field is a little higher than that. It's in this green area here. And the heart field is naturally self-propelled. It is naturally expanding. And I'm sure even if you had mainly sort of negative or this type, the solar plexus type of experience in the past, then you may have met people where you just have a flow of energy. You just resonate with the people, and everything is just expansive. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in love with this person, but I'm sure you can relate to that. There is a different kind of love, and this is the one we're talking about. This is the one we're addressing here. From an energetic standpoint, this is the most natural type of love, most natural type of relationship, is one that is not based on us having to push into the person or into the relationship, but to allow it to expand. Mm-hmm. And at this point, I would like to take you up on your raised hands. Okay, are you guys ready?
All right.
So I'm just gonna turn on your microphone, and you are free to talk. Maybe you have a comment to make, or want to share something with us in general, or have a question right away. We still have a few more slides, 20 or so to go, which will make us hopelessly going over time. But I want to honor your courage to speak up. So here you go. Tina Marie, I am unmuting your microphone, so you are live now. Hi.
Hi, it was a mistake, Jonah.
Okay.
I think I downloaded the software and it came on the screen with a green hand up, and I just looked at it and thought if it was normal or not.
Higher self prompting you. That's totally
I usually have a lot to say about that, not right now.
It's totally okay. I'm taking your hand down. Okay, is it gone now?
Oh, now it's green and upwards when I look at it.
Okay. Well, from our perspective here, it's turned off now.
It's clean. Yeah.
So I can turn off your microphone now, and I apologize for the disturbance. And this is okay with the technology here. We're all just beginners, okay?
Thank you.
But come back whenever you want to.
You bet.
All right. Okay. Marga, are you ready? I'm unmuting your microphone. So you are live right now. It's okay if this is a mistake. Just let us know, and I go away. How are you? Okay, this may be a mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I'm muting your microphone again and taking your hand down. That's all right. Okay, I just want to work through this so I don't miss out on anyone here, and I don't want to ignore you. Iris, are you ready? Okay. Hey, how are you?
Iris?
Okay. All right. I guess we have a lot of technical issues, so we're just going to unmute you and come back if you still want to speak. I'm lowering your hand. And here's another hand. Jackie, are you okay to speak? I'm going to unmute your microphone. How are you? Okay, I'm going to turn this off again. I don't want to infringe on anybody, so I just had to work through this. So I'm just going to ignore those hands right now and turn them all down.
If someone had a question with their hand raised and they had some issues with their microphone, just type a question to us. That way we can see it. Because sometimes there is some glitches with the software. And
there's a lot of participants here, so we may oversee this. So I just wanted to make sure that you don't feel left out. Okay, there's another hand now. Okay, let's try this again. Are you there? Hello? Okay. No? Okay, so we're just going to, I've just lowered all the hands. So if you have a question, then just come in. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we're getting comments here. So yes, it's difficult with the technology. So don't worry. We struggle too. And so no judgment here at all.
Yeah.
And we're used to this. Okay, we work with this every week. So that's totally okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we have a question already, and just so you know, we have a whole list of questions that we'll address here, like probably in 10, 15 minutes. But I would like to address those questions that are coming in right away so that you know we see them. Here's a question. I don't know if this is pertinent, but what about sexuality without emotions? Is that acceptable? Okay, just jumping ahead a little bit, and it's okay though, because sexuality, as I mentioned this earlier, is part of our intimacy. It's not the only way we can express or we can experience intimacy, but it is part of our connection with other people. The question is sexuality without emotions acceptable? And
yeah, of course it is.
Here, from an energetic standpoint, and don't get me wrong, from an energetic standpoint, emotions are often not what they seem to be. However, if you are in for a deeper experience and really wanting to connect with a person, you will need the connection with your heart. And the connection with your heart, I just want to send this up front here, feelings are not necessarily the same as emotions, at least in the English language. There's a differentiation here. So other languages sometimes don't have that differentiation. So we can connect with someone on a deep heart level, but without feeling in love with this person, okay? This is possible. But there is another level. So if we allow our true feelings through our heart, then there will be emotions that we feel, and that is okay. It doesn't have to be according to sort of what the norm or what our beliefs, our religious beliefs, or so forth dictate us. So yes, there's no judgment in that. Thanks for asking that. How do we know the difference between a solar plexus love and a heart love? Very, very good and very important question. The differences are really can mostly be felt. So the absence of the type of problems that I've listed here in this picture.
And a lot of times too in relationships, I mean, it's so common to have these type of solar plexus relationships. It's part of maturing, in my view, because you have to kind of go through some of these things. So can a solar plexus love become what we would call more true love or more intimate? Of course, that's the goal of a lot of relationships. That's the goal of a lot of marriage counseling, all those kind of things. So the difference typically is there's typically with the solar plexus love, there is a payoff you're getting, or at least one or several payoffs you're getting from that relationship. So without the absence, so if I have that type of relationship with Yona, and let's say whatever it is I'm getting out of it, if she leaves the situation for a week or 2 weeks, and I all of a sudden feel this lack that I had before, that it's not lack of companionship, it's emptiness that I can't get without her, there's your sign. And that sometimes has multiple layers to it and complexities. That doesn't mean that your relationship is bad or wrong or can't change or can't grow. It's more so just understanding where you're at. And most of us, even people who've really worked on being truly open, intimate, and loving, may still have components of solar plexus love because they're working on themselves. So there's no perfect combination of things. Sometimes it just takes time. There's going to be things you have down. Like you may be extremely intimate with people, but when it comes to someone that you're in a romantic relationship with, there may be trust issues there. So there may be intimacy 85% of the time, but then there's little things that make you go into your protection mode. That's all part of the game, and that's all part of unwinding our own issues.
Since we are all energetically sensitive people here, I think a simple answer to your question is the difference between a heart love and solar plexus love is when both partners feel free to expand, free to express their feelings and their soul's purpose and so forth on all levels.
Yeah, and even to express issues, that it's okay to have issues and work through them, So that's a lot of times you'll have with solar plexus situations, you'll have people who've been together for 15, 20, 30 years, and all of a sudden it's gone. Something changed, something happened, the relationship ended because that payoff, that situation, that push no longer works.
And Jeff said something very important to some degree. We have to go through certain aspects, shame, guilt, fears, jealousy, control, protection, vanity, pride. Those are things that we have to go through, and we do this through our personal evolution. And so the closer we get to our own heart connection and being in our heart, the less we feel the need to control our relationship partner or to control even ourselves. All right. So this is, of course, we're easing into the subject here, but just so you know, just because, like, say, you find yourselves in a relationship that's based on solar plexus or that has started this way, it doesn't mean you can't change that.
No, yeah.
On the contrary. So I brought up this picture here to tickle you guys a little bit there, and to provoke this, because 99% of us will find ourselves in that.
In some form or another.
Yeah. And this doesn't mean that we have a bad relationship. It just means that there are issues from an energetic standpoint, being energetically sensitive or empathetic, that can really sort of inflict or impact our own ability to love ourselves. And so when it comes to the quality of our relationship, we really need to go back to within ourselves, and a relationship that is evolving along with the consciousness evolution of the individual partners is a true love relationship. Okay, so if you find yourself here, don't feel bad, that you're there. All that means is, wow, there are things I never looked at before. So thank you for asking that question. Next question. Hello from Scotland. Yes, hello. I just got back from Iceland, and there was something very interesting I've learned from my brothers, who are very fond of Scottish people, and I will share this with you maybe one day in person. This would bring us off tangent here. Is it possible to see the difference if you see it's not yours? I think the question means, and please correct me, send me another text if I'm not getting this right, to see the difference between what's yours and what isn't. Like if you were in a relationship where somebody else is kind of like pushing this onto you,
Sounds like it, yeah.
and you are not, and you don't want this. Yes, this is what we do through working with our perception, through refining our energetic sensitivity and learning how to work with this instead of just being completely overwhelmed, or sometimes even controlled or dominated by energies from the outside of us. We learn how to differentiate that. So it's not always that easy. Yes, and we're getting a lot of thank yous here and empowering and encouraging words. Thank you for that. We truly appreciate you being here, and we feel honored. Yes, thank you. We love to hear you too. Okay, so here's a question that is very good. And actually, I have a slide on that. Can you expand a little bit on what a fantasy bond is? Yes, I will in a minute. Okay, so thank you for asking about this. I also have a book recommendation for you guys.
The title's simple. Fantasy bond. No, just kidding.
Yes, fears and guilt. Yes, when that comes. Okay. So maybe your question was in the direction. How to differentiate those feelings inside of us, if they're actually coming from ourselves or from the other person. Yeah. Very often, and this is something that Carl Jung was really good at showing this, is the issues that we have with ourselves, we tend to project them onto others. Okay? Just let this sink in a little bit. 90% of the time, what we accuse the other people of is actually what we perceive as a problem within ourselves.
90, I'd say 99. Yeah, it's just the game,
Depending on how aware we are.
Yeah.
So when it comes to our relationships and our relationship issues, and I'm now starting to reduce this more to our romantic relationships, the problems, the issues that we have in our relationships, especially long-term relationships, very often linked to our own problems within ourselves. So yes, maybe this specific fear, like say jealousy. What do we do if you have a very jealous partner? This is one of the most frequently asked questions. And my partner is constantly, just projecting this onto me. Well, first of all, yes, it will have an effect on us. It will actually make us feel that jealousy and make us feel fearful as well. And jealousy can transfer from one person to another. You know, you've never really thought about your husband or your partner, your boyfriend cheating on you, and by him being all jealous about the other guys that you communicate with, you know, this may actually induce the thought in you. So this would be a very typical transference,
Yes.
you know, of a fear. And that happens very often in relationships. So the only way to differentiate that is to really know your own stuff, is to go within and know your stuff. That's what allows you to differentiate. Thanks for asking that question. Okay, here's another question going into a different direction. What about sexual triggers? Almost like every time I'm connecting with my twin soul, you know, my relationship partner, I feel extremely sexual and it occurs without any prompts. Yes, there are energetic triggers between us, and sometimes projection can also, and not just sometimes, actually, in our societies, in our Western societies, is very, very common to be exposed to sexual projection, or even using sexual projection ourselves without even knowing this. The purpose of sexual projection and so forth, I don't want anybody to feel judged. There is a purpose for that, and we've spent hours, you know, in workshops and so forth to work through these things. But sexual projection has an origin, but for people who seek, you know, sort of the connection on a true self level and higher consciousness aspects, sexual projection needs to be observed and needs to be investigated very carefully. When being with your twin soul, it is possible that you have a very strong, both of you, a very strong interaction of your energies, and it can feel sexual and may not even be. It can trigger sexual energies within you. And in transmission work, we very often address this with people that when we begin to work on our inner flow of energy, and when that starts to arise, you know, and many of you have heard this, you know, and keywords Kundalini and stuff like that. And when our energy really begins to flow freely within ourselves through the inner work that we're doing, a lot of life force is set free. And if we are not used to that, and if we don't know how to handle that, it will feel sexual. But you know what? Most of the time it really isn't. And so we practice how to pull these energies into our heart first. And within a twin soul relationship, it's very important to do this before engaging in or interacting sexually, is to pull your sexual or whatever feels like sexual energies into your heart center first, so that you can interact from within that heart connection. All right. This counts for any relationship, twin soul relationships in particular, because it can go lopsided very quickly. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, cool. We get to some of these aspects, and again, don't you know, be disappointed if we can't really go too deep on everything. But this is our, you know, this is where the slides are going, you know, is going into intimacy and why, you know, why do these sexual questions come up? Because it's part of how some of us connect with other people, or, you know, sometimes even, and this includes myself, you know, my own evolution in relationships. And the only way we know how to become intimate with people. And when we begin to connect with our energies and learn how to differentiate a bit more and learn our own stuff, we will discover that there are many more ways to become intimate with a person.
Yeah, it's not just, you can be intimate with anybody. And there's intimacy with friends, with family members, with relationship partners. It's not just physical intimacy. Intimacy means you're willing, well, there's a nice quote here, but there's a willingness to be open. There's a willingness to be true and to be open to talking and being, you know, available for that person. So
yes, and becoming true to ourselves has a certain price. Okay, if we want to be open, if we want to be, if we want to love with an open heart, if we want to be vulnerable and if we want to be true, we kind of have to go and allow our deepest fears to come forward and to heal them first. Otherwise, we'll always shy away. We'll avoid intimacy. We may be able to have sexual relationships, but we'll never get to that deeper part, where our energies truly interact. And so intimacy, itself, from an energetic standpoint, is something that allows our energy to flow, between me and another being, and to flow back to me and to be reflected so that I can grow, so that I can learn from this, so I can evolve, and of course, vice versa. So here the quote, nothing allows us to grow more than intimate connections. When they originate from deep within, it allows us to be vulnerable while being open and seen through the eyes of another without fears, without having to resort to all our defensive programs and coping mechanisms. So true intimacy is really about being open, and to a degree being, I called this, in the past I've called this voluntary vulnerability. So becoming vulnerable, but without feeling the need to defend or ward off. All right. Yes, there's a few more questions, and we won't. Yes, we won't be able to answer all of them. I'll have to put one question aside here that I'll address in a little bit. So I hope this is coming across, like why are we addressing intimacy? Because we're addressing things from an energetic point of view. And interacting with other people is pretty much the best way for us to evolve. This doesn't mean that we can't evolve without a relationship, but it's the fastest way. And the general aspects that come in through intimacy are, or that are being challenged through intimacy with others on an energetic level. Again, I don't just reduce this to sexual intimacy. That's just like a tiny little part of energetic interaction. Is the ability to really connect within, is the vulnerability and the trust that we can feel in our energy, in ourselves, and kind of like we mentioned earlier with once we have enough food, to share this with others, is to feel self-worth and respect for ourselves and the other person. One of your guys' questions, how do I know the difference between solar plexus and true love or love relationship? One big one is respect. Is space, is worth. Do I feel respected in my energy? Do I feel my space respected? Is my partner respecting my boundaries? And if not, this doesn't make my partner a bad person. It typically makes the partner a person who's in need of something, but something that this person needs to begin to work on getting through him or herself. Because if we try to get this through the other, we inevitably and oftentimes unconsciously infringing on our partner's energy and trying to get the energy that we don't have through the other. And that's where a lot of the overstepping boundaries and disrespect and so forth are located. We learn through intimacy, we learn the true expression of ourselves. And sometimes it's needed to have another person, not necessarily a romantic relationship partner, but to have another person to just simply talk to and to see ourselves in that reflection. And that's why communication is such a huge part of that. And as we mentioned earlier, communication doesn't just happen through our words, but our words are, kind of like the tool, kind of like, what we need to use in order to express our feelings and to engage in exchange on a verbal level. So a big part here, within the transCODES community is to learn how to communicate these things, how to communicate energetic perceptions, and how to be open and non-judgmental about these things. And of course, the flow of love and self-love. I'm reading some of the questions here. Wonderful. Yes, thank you for your empowering words and for your gratitude. This really helps us. This is what we're doing this for. Okay, we're not doing this because we're bored. We have 3 kids and busy household and all that, and we do this to share some of that energy and to share some of the experiences that we have gained on our personal journey and on our journey with all our clients. Yes. And here we're just getting confirmed, that some of the things, about respect and so forth play a big role. So why are we all so afraid of intimacy? Well, it's pretty simple. We're afraid to be rejected. We're afraid, to get hurt. And
to be abandoned, to get hurt, abused, trauma, all those things.
Yeah, and this is sort of part of our karmic setup. We come into this world with a lot of experiences, with a lot of circumstances and so forth that we seemingly have to go through, to get to this point where we find ourselves like with a closed heart, with a closed heart. And right now, this is sort of what our society is promoting. So those of us who are willing to break out of that and who want to evolve out of this still find themselves in somewhat a hostile environment here. So not everybody will understand what we're talking about here. Not everybody will understand, when you share your true feelings, and they'll look at you like you're crazy or, you're nutball. So know that you are not alone, okay? Feeling that you are not in your heart and that you have a hard time connecting with your heart is one of the most common symptoms right now. There has never been in the history of humankind been a time where people have used more drugs, more alcohol, more numbing agents than these days to avoid the pain of a closed heart. And so as much as our collective is beginning to evolve and trying to awakening, what is called, what this is called in like New Age circles and so forth, just as much does it remind us on how disconnected we actually are within. So the journey, of resolving and healing some of these things really begins within ourselves, within our heart. And so to overcome our fear of rejection, our fear of loss and so forth, we need to start with loving ourselves. We need to dare loving ourselves first. And this doesn't mean we can't do this within a relationship. In fact, there's some kinds of relationships that are almost designed for that, to do this together. And this is goes into the direction of twin soul, twin flame relationships that we get to here in 1 minute. And the reason why this is such a huge, or not the reason, but what this causes in our society is really a culture of withholding and withdrawing our emotions, of suppressing our emotions, of lack of commitment, of trying to control ourselves, trying to control others, and a lack of openness, a lack of actual true bonding, and sort of dysfunctional attachments. And those of you who are interested in going into the more psychological aspects of this, here's 2 recommendations. Same author, Dr. Robert Firestone, very beautifully explained. You don't have to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist to understand this. The fear of intimacy and fantasy bond. Mm-hmm. And one of your questions earlier, can you explain what a fantasy bond is? A fantasy bond is probably what most of you see all around you. It's a type of relationship that's basically based on outer values and outer thinking, on what the neighbors think, how the Joneses are, how are we regarded, where there's an emptiness within both partners, where the true essence of the relationship cannot be felt, where it expresses itself through, the money, the house, the kids, what they do, but not how they are. So a fantasy bond is, so to speak, the natural sort of consequence of a solar plexus interaction within a relationship over time. Mm-hmm. Is when we feel lonely within a relationship.
Although you get all the perks and all the setups you're supposed to there. That's typically based on society, how you were brought up, what you're supposed to have, and there's nothing wrong with those things. But if there's no basis of a foundation in love, eventually that begins to feel, like you said, very empty, and issues become more prevalent.
Yeah.
What
Being
used
lonely.
to be, what used to be nagging little things at the beginning that you might have even enjoyed about your partner now become huge sledgehammers of frustration. So it just creates, and actually what it does is it creates the potentiality, if you listen to those things, to either change or possibly have to break out of that relationship to a different one. So that's the beauty of most relationships, with all these things that occur: fantasy bonds, control, issues with withholding, withdrawing. Those are all chances to change and heal.
Yeah, so
there's willingness to be there.
So finding it, those of you who find themselves, however you understand the word fantasy bond right now, who find themselves like in a relationship like this doesn't mean that you can't work on this. Mm-hmm. On the contrary, this is why we're here. Okay, this is the message. Really, there's a lot of hope, and there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of potential. Okay, a fantasy bond is a relationship where it's the relationship itself that matters, and not the people involved. Is where what the others think, or even what we think. There's a lot of people who are very happy in a fantasy bond.
Yeah.
This is exactly what they want. They want that kind of security. Knowing that they have a partner, knowing that they have a house, that they have health insurance and life insurance and
no intimacy, and it's okay.
And that's okay. So there's no judgment in this. But if you feel empty, if you feel lonely, before you think about breaking out, exchanging your partner, or engaging with other partners, secretly, give it a thought. If there is, the foundation there for yourself to work on this, to work on this within your relationship with your partner together. All right. Again, I want to emphasize that a lot of these phenomena nowadays are really part of our collective programming. So a lot of us, we just never really think about it because we think it's normal. Most relationships we'll observe around us will be somewhat, solar plexus or fantasy bonds. And it's so normal that we never question it. But for people who are energetically sensitive, and for people who are awakening, who are becoming more in touch with their hearts, there is a pain there. There's a deep, deep pain there in those kind of relationships. And we just want you to know that you're not alone, but that there's a lot you can do about this, okay? So here I've just really summarized, kind of like the question that we had earlier, like, well, how do you know that I am in a true love relationship? And there are some questions that you can ask yourself. Do you really feel lovable? Do you unconditionally feel lovable? Do you feel enough? Or do you have this nagging inner voice that keeps on telling you have to do this in order to be loved? You're not enough. You're not good enough. Do you feel that you have to be in a certain way to be worthy? And don't dare to show your true self, even if it's an angry true self or a sad true self, out of the fear that you could lose your partner. Do you pull out before you can get hurt? Do you run away from commitments? Do you attack when it feels like you're hurt? Do you pretend to be connected with another person sometimes? Do you pretend love sometimes? Or do you have like a really strong critical inner voice that keeps sabotaging you? Those are indications, that there are things within you that you may want to work with, and you may want to address before you address, say, getting divorced or splitting up or so, like working within yourself. And sometimes just you starting on doing that and shifting your perspective and shifting some of your energy helps to bump up the entire energy, the entire vibrational rate of your relationship, and inspires your partner to do the same thing. And here again, just summarized more or less for the recording, factors that are influencing our relationships, like the quality of our relationships. And we went through these already. Of course, here at the core, our inner connection, the quality of our inner connection, the trust in ourselves. And I'm not talking about self-worth. I'm talking about the trust that you can have in your own energy. Collective aspects, is the what kind of culture do I live in? What kind of ethnic group do I live in? What kind of religious beliefs do I have? What kind of society do I live in? Those have a particularly strong impact on the way we see relationships and the way we feel about them. Karmic aspects and inner child aspects, huge subjects. I mean, we spend years, working through these inner aspects, and within transCODES, we've created this platform, the safe space to do that, for yourself. Physical aspects, we don't like ourselves physically, and we think we're not worthy because, we're overweight, or, we're not athletic, or whatever it is, whatever your particular cultural group considers to be worthy physically. Okay. Addiction patterns, avoidance patterns that we have, maybe due to a hard childhood, maybe due to just some family constellations and so forth, escape patterns that we have, those greatly impact our ability or the quality in our relationships. And of course, just our personal story, and projections that we grew up with, that we do without even being aware of it, control patterns that we are not aware of. And of course, last but not least, and this is a big group of us, especially within the group of empaths and energetically sensitive people, those of us who've experienced trauma and abuse in a very early stage. Just to give you a heads up here, a lot of people, there's a correlation here between trauma, abuse, and energetic sensitivity. A lot of us who find themselves, being very empathetic, being very sensitive, having a high degree of inner perception, actually come from a traumatic background. And there is a purpose to that. So there are ways to work through this. Healing those relationship issues. How do you do this? Okay, just real quick here. I'm just reading it, so we have said it once. It all begins with recognizing our own fears and acknowledging them. And then working through identifying some of our patterns that we're not aware of. Then we can spend a little bit of time on understanding their origin. Sometimes they have a good purpose, but we've evolved and we don't need them anymore. Things like shadow, things like inner child aspects, and sort of imbalances with masculine and feminine energies play a role here. Working on just general energetic balance, learning our energy system, learning how to work with it, just like how we learn about biology in school. We're becoming more aware of our energy, so we need to learn. There's dynamics, mechanics, and things to be learned about energy, our own, and of course the interaction with others. Focusing on our heart connection. That's probably the single most important path of healing for most of our issues. Facing some of our addiction aspects, of our avoidance aspects. And again, this doesn't necessarily imply substance abuse. It can be all other kinds of addictive structures. A lot of us have addictive structures without substances involved. And of course, working through them and working through connection issues in our relationships together with the other person. Okay. I just want to point out here one more thing, and that's something for those of you who already know that they have some inner child stuff, some wounded things from childhood. In psychology, there's a sort of, there's always labels, and we don't really want to go there. But I just want you to know that there is, that there are aspects, that affect all of us, and depending on how we grow up, we kind of develop, as either like an anxious person, an avoidant person, or a secure person. So wherever, sort of you find yourself, often a combination, of that, know that there are reasons for that. Okay, and so summarizing, what makes a happy relationship like a true love relationship? a happy and long-lasting relationship. Do you want to read this?
No, you go ahead.
I'm on the roll here.
You're doing fine. You're okay. Yeah.
Having an open heart. Having an open heart. Having an open heart. And if we find our heart closed, making an effort to open it, even if it comes out in a
not so nice way sometimes.
Or, like being clumsy or whatever. Do not be afraid of making a fool of yourself, when expressing your feeling and being open.
That's part of being intimate. The willingness to be goofy, the willingness to be, to gotta go through it, stumble, fumble, bumble the first few times because you're not used to it. That's just part of the game. It's the process of just trying and being there and working on it. Because you're opening up something that most people typically don't. They did when they were at some point when they were younger, and something created it, or they came in with karmic issues that didn't allow it. And now that attempt to go into self-love, to go into an open heart, to go into trust and intimacy, a lot of things on this compassion, what happens is you're going to find out that it's like a child learning to walk. You're going to fall down a few times.
There's nothing more powerful than an open heart. Yeah. There's nothing more powerful than speaking from your heart. Yeah. This has nothing to do with eloquence. This has nothing to do with language. English is my third language. I know I stumble. I know I make grammatical errors here and there. I know I have typos and so forth, but I don't care because I speak to you from my heart. Mm-hmm. And I think you can feel that. So those things don't matter. All right. So don't get hung up on, I can't express myself, or try it. There's nothing more powerful than an open heart. Dare to love yourself. Go within, do something that nurtures you, find ways that make you feel love yourself more, find ways, or actively work on those, on loving those parts of you that you can't love yet. Remember that everything you see in the other that you don't love, that rub you the wrong way in the other person, are typically a reflection of what you can't love about yourself. Develop passion, connect with your passion. Yes, this can include your sexuality, but you know what? Sexuality is such a small part of that. Connect with your passion for whatever it is, whether it be playing the violin or painting or being with children or being with animals, being with plants. No matter what it is, find your passion. Be compassionate. Give others a soft eye, as our teacher always used to say. Don't judge them. Understand that everybody has their own journey, their own timeline, and your partner too. And so be compassionate. Even if you may not be able to relate to what they're going through, but allow them that space to go through what they need to go through. Commit. Most of all, commit to yourself. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you learn how to commit to yourself, truly, you'll become able to commit in relationships. And we have a few questions here, so please bear with me. I know some of you have to go, but we get to questions related to these aspects here in 1 minute. Respect. We've already covered some parts of that. Big part of a happy and long-lasting relationship. And why don't we respect others sometimes, or why don't we feel respected? Because we have issues with self-respect. So learn to respect yourself. Learn to respect your boundaries. Learn how to communicate your needs and to maintain your boundaries. That's all part of respect. Trust in yourself, and allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to be intimate on that deeper level of who you truly are. And last but not least, work on your communication. Yes, again, it's not about the grammar, it's not about the eloquence. It's about being willing to speak from your heart, and sometimes say things as simple as, I'm really sorry for what I just said and how I just reacted. I was just afraid you wouldn't love me anymore. This is about as true as it can be. And it shifts the energy of the other person. Okay, now we finally get to the part, TwinSoul relationships. And, I have a picture here, and I'm sure most of you have heard and seen lots of YouTube videos and read articles and so forth and seen tons of pictures. I want you to know that the way we look at twin soul relationships is from an energetic standpoint. We do not put a lot of the mysticism. We do respect the mystical aspect of twin soul relationships, but I will not go into these esoteric and sometimes from my perspective, very misleading specialness or romanticism about twin soul relationships. Twin soul relationships could probably also be called just simply true self relationships. Those are relationships that are not based on our ego anymore. They're not based on the consciousness that favors just simply the survival or simply the sustaining and the maintaining of our ego. Twin soul relationships happen when a person is sort of beyond their ego stuff. That doesn't mean that they don't still have ego stuff within them, but it means a person is ready to move on to a larger context, to a larger perspective, and see a deeper purpose in a relationship. Okay, kind of like we mentioned at the beginning, when at first you struggle with survival and having enough food, and once you kind of sorted out some of your inner things and you know your stuff and you're ready to move on and you're actually kind of sick and tired of yourself, that's when your energy field becomes ready to attract your vibrational match. And that's typically, of course, again, a little broad, but that's typically what people mean with twin soul or twin flame relationship. And when two people that are an absolute vibrational match, when they happen to meet, and they happen to meet on a soul level with all these things that we talked about out of the way, and they're open and come with an open heart, and their energies are naturally expanding and they're naturally self-propelled. They don't need another person to feel whole. Then something happens, and this is where the mystical aspect comes in. And it's only mystical because nobody really talks about it in that clear manner. But here I've brought up a quote that some of the writings that you may have read from me that result out of the transmission work, out of the energy work that we do. Is a twin soul reunion is when the unconditional mirror is the unconditional mirror of divine love, regardless of what religious understanding you have. It's that true essence of love flowing through you, the total reflection of our true love for ourselves and our inner divinity in the other. It is the expression of a mutual and harmonious energy exchange with the sole purpose of healing, creation, and synergetic soul expansion, which is pretty much the same thing I said. In other words, void of ego, void of the payoff that we are trained and conditioned to seek in a relationship. And this is where I would like to leave it here. There is a particular purpose in twin soul relationships, and that is that it goes beyond the two people. There is a synergy that unfolds when two people come together on this level that is more than the sum of both parts. And this synergy is sort of like an anchoring of those higher concepts of energy, those higher concepts of consciousness and love into the physical. So true twin soul relationships are typically occurring when the energy of both these people are ready to serve others. And it is a lot about healing then. So here is the energetic view of the twin soul and twin flame relationship, the exact same ones as the factors needed for a happy and long-lasting relationship, the exact same ones. It's just when you are with your twin soul or twin flame and you are not here, the whole thing is probably going to challenge you like nothing else in your life before. So within those relationships, It's very important to be aware of these things and to know your stuff. And this is where I want to leave this now, because we would like to really get into the questions. And there were a lot of questions that we received up front, and I kind of summarized some of them here as frequently asked questions. Yes, I know we're over time. Okay, so if you have to leave, and then listen to the recording in the end. And I'm sorry we couldn't answer your personal question. You can always email us. What is the purpose of repeating relationships? Why do we keep repeating the same type of relationship over and over?
Because we haven't got it yet. That's the simple answer.
Thank you.
You keep repeating a type of relationship because there's a pattern there that needs to either be, well, apparently has to be experienced until you're willing to let it go, and again, it depends upon the conscious level you're at and what your intention is, because obviously if your intention is to stay in a certain pattern, you can repeat the same relationship for lifetimes because maybe you don't want to change. But at some point, typically what happens is there'll be a point where you begin to feel uncomfortable, you begin to feel like you want more or something different, and that's when those relationship or those repeating situations in relationship become very important, because there's a lesson in there that needs to be looked at and transcended or let go of.
Or you're just simply really unhappy with yourself.
Yeah.
You have to take antidepressants, or you have to use all kinds of self-soothing mechanisms just to function. And this can also be related to repeating patterns in your life. And just so you know, from a statistical standpoint, 85% of us will pick a relationship partner that in one way or other resembles one of our caretakers, one of our, like our mom or dad or whoever raised us. 85% of us.
And the other 14.5% will pick someone who's the exact opposite.
Exactly. This, if you feel like this is a theme in your life, well, know that you're not alone. Okay. And Jeff's first answer was very accurate. It's because we haven't gotten it yet. And that doesn't mean that we're too dumb or too stupid to get it. It means that we haven't really healed that part in us that is seeking healing through, and now listen very carefully, recreating the circumstances over and over and over again so that we can finally heal those parts in us. It is not the partner. Your vibration pulls in that type of partner that can create an optimal opportunity for healing for you. And this is why you repeat. And a big part of healing, self-healing, is identifying those patterns. If you can already see that there are repeating patterns in your relationships, well, it's not very difficult to deduct from there. Even though you had different partners, but if you have the same patterns happening over and over again, well, the only common denominator in all your relationships was you. So that's a way to start. Okay. So there is no judgment in that. It just means that your energy is typically many, many steps ahead of you. All right. And what many people feel like, as fate or why me or so forth, is an opportunity to heal, is an opportunity to transcend karma. And those of you who are interested in those karmic aspects and what that means, and we don't really mean reincarnation with that, but it can sometimes imply that. Go on YouTube on the transCODES channel and listen to another free webinar that we did a year ago about karmic aspects and relationships. You'll find a lot of interesting aspects there. Okay, another frequently asked question: how come I keep on just being with people who don't want to commit? Well, this goes in the same direction like the first problem here. What about you? What about your commitment? Are you committed to yourself? You attract in your life, and not to say it's all your fault. This is not where this is going. Okay, don't get me wrong, and especially not when it comes to abusive and traumatic experiences. But there is a part in us, that if we are not fully committed to ourselves, to our true selves, our energy is not whole. Our energy is not round then, and we become prey. We can become prey. We become attractive to people who like to take advantage of us, or who like to just get that part of our energy that they need. So there's always an interaction. There's always two parts to that, okay? But whatever the issue is that we see repeats in our relationships, go and ask yourself, what about you? In that, why do I always attract jealous partners? Well, maybe it's because you don't really trust in yourself. Because jealousy has a lot to do with trust. So if I don't trust in myself, I attract people who cannot trust in themselves and cannot trust in their love. And of course, all that is a bit simplified, but there's a lot of sort of inner guidance in that. If we really go, if we dare to go to that level and reflect on ourselves.
It's contemplating. It's going into that introspection and seeing what part of our side of the fence is involved, because it usually is.
Waning connection and intimacy, we talked about this at length. So this is where fantasy bond and fear of intimacy and so forth comes in. Jealousy again has to do with trust, and is a coverted a form of control. So whether you're the jealous or partner, or your partner is the jealous partner, or both of you jealous, from an energetic point of view, it's an attempt to control the other person. Why do we try to control other person? Because we are afraid. And why are we afraid? Well, that's part of our introspection, of our inner work. What is it deep down that we are afraid of? Codependency, probably one of the most common phenomena for energetically sensitive people. Well, there is a huge amount of codependency in empaths. Why is that? Codependency, just like jealousy, is a coverted form of control. And it is sort of the hidden kind of control. It's the type where I feel like the doormat, and I feel like the victim, and I feel like the one, who's always taken advantage of. But in reality, deep down, energetically, I'm using that to control the other, to instill hidden guilt issues in the other. So it's a very coverted form. And when we have, in shadow work, we have a specific term for that, white shadow. It's often linked to white shadow. Please don't feel judged, okay? It takes one to know one, all right? So I can talk about codependency forever.
Me too.
Because it's also something that I had to deal with, for many decades of my life. Monogamy, one of the frequently asked questions. I got a lot of questions about that up front as well. Is it ethical? Is it energetically integrous to have more than one relationship? Well, this has a lot to do with your religious and cultural programming. From an energetic standpoint, true intimacy does not require multiple relationships. If you're willing to engage in a sort of true love relationship with another person, there will be no need to have multiple relationships. In fact, I don't even think there's a capacity there. But this doesn't mean that it's unethical, and we're not.
Well, it depends upon your ethics.
True, too.
No offense, but it kind of depends upon what your ethics are.
Yeah.
And I would agree with you on that. At some point, though, at a certain level, it wouldn't make sense. Not that it's wrong to have multiple relationships or bad or anything like that. There's no judgment there. But typically, as you begin to expand and your conscious level increases or vibrates faster, that need kind of dissipates.
Yeah. So, just to speak true words here, for most people, monogamy really means having sex with multiple people. And when I'm driven by, having sex, and I need, sorry for those interruptions here. We're out in nature and we get a lot of...
got some macaws who are causing some issues.
for a lot of, when we feel attracted, to having sexual relationships with multiple partners, then we need to investigate, what we're driven by and what is controlling us. Transcending sexual energy is a big part of consciousness work. And not that there's anything wrong with sexual energies or having sex, but if it controls our life and if we constantly feel unsatisfied, then there is a very strong solar plexus, often also second chakra, first chakra issue there, an imbalance. So without, judging you, if someone who's say, in the height of puberty and hormones rushing into the body and so forth, it will have a physical effect, and it will, in that phase, we'll, think a lot about sex and think that's what the life is about. Okay. But as we mature, as we emotionally and spiritually mature, we learn that, relationships are really not just about sex and so forth. And so,
and sex isn't even just about sex. That's the other thing that
exactly.
Yeah.
So what Jeff said right now was very important. It depends on our ethics. It depends on our virtues and our level of consciousness, really. So there is no one answer to that.
No. And it's not saying that if you do have multiple partners that your conscious level is low. That's not the case either. It's just you have to really look at it from your own experiences and your own viewpoint and your own energetic states. Because what Yona stated with the conquest, the going out there and having that desire that never is fulfilled, that's typically, like Yona said, a second chakra issue that it never has an end. So if you don't change that, if you don't face that need to have sex with multiple people, eventually it just drives you and it controls you. So what happens a lot of times, though, as you get into a deeper relationship with one person that is sexual, and you have that wantingness, both of you do, to become more intimate, more open, those other needs, those other not needs, but more desires to have that passing, relationship or affair or whatever, those kind of dissipate. They just kind of fall away.
And this actually reminds me of one of you asking earlier, how can I differentiate solar plexus love from true love relationships? It's what Jeff just said. Our ego. Okay, so let's just equate a solar plexus relationship with an ego-based relationship. Our ego is insatiable. When our ego gets what it wants more. It wants more of this and more of that. It is insatiable because it needs to be sustained. It needs to be fed. It constantly needs a feed of energy. And this is a very often linked to the need to have multiple relationships or multiple sex partners. So there is an ego component to that, to having multiple relationships. A true love relationship operates on a different level. We don't really feel the need that we don't really feel the need for a partner altogether. We don't really feel the need to having to saturate anything within us through another person altogether. And therefore, if we are happy, if we're lucky enough to meet a person, to meet that vibrational match in our lifetime, then that there is a self-propelled energy unfolding that is way more than we could ever experience through our ego.
And I wouldn't say it's even about lucky, because there is one question: what do I do to attract the lover for me? Well, that comes down to what your energy level is, and what Yona's talking about with all these issues and all the problems that come up in relationships. Well, that's the energy level you're at for whatever reason. There's no judgment in that. We all have our issues, so regardless of how loving Yona and I try to be with each other, we still have issues that pop up and create drama and problems and fights, even, and those kind of things. But that's a relationship, that's life, but we have the intention, at least most of the time, to be in our hearts and to be loving. So what happens is that, how do we attract the person that you want to be with? Well, you work on yourself. So the more you work on loving yourself and being open to yourself and being intimate with your own issues. So if I begin to look at my own self and realize, okay, I got anger, I got guilt, I got fear, I've got problems with mom, I've got problems with dad. And you work on those things. As you begin to work on yourself and you change yourself, the relationship partner that comes forward, and it may be the one you currently have. I'm not saying that it has to be a new person. They begin to change also.
Yeah, so the question that Jeff picked up on here is the question is a question that I picked as representative of one of those frequently asked questions.
Yeah.
When we're single and we're on our inner journey and we want to expand and we want to evolve, how can we attract the right partner? How can we attract the kind of relationship into our lives that we truly want? And the one answer is by learning how to love ourselves, by working on ourselves, by becoming the best partner that we can be, and not focusing on another partner, but focusing on us becoming a good partner. And that is what attracts the right person into your life. And it also, in your energy field, signifies that there's things like triggers and attractor fields and so forth. it triggers an opening up of an energetic signature that attracts the exact vibrational match into your life. And that's what you need to look at. Look at yourself and focus on becoming the best partner you can be, even if you're not in a relationship. And that then attracts the partner into your life. Obviously, wearing flashy clothing, projecting things, pretending to be special or famous, rich or whatever is not going to do it.
Well, yeah, it'll attract that.
It will attract that.
Yeah, so and if that's what you want, that's okay. It comes down to really what it is that whatever you intend. So whatever you hold in mind or your energy, that's what you'll attract. So if you don't like what you're attracting, well, guess what? Maybe look inside and see what's going on. Because then as you change that, as I've just said over and over again, that will change as well. So it's no different if you look at anything in life. If you want to go out and get a different kind of work, I'm not saying better, but different kind of work, well, you have to work on yourself. You have to go in and find things. You have to adjust. You have to maybe get training. It's no different in relationships. It's
or
about
changing your energy,
exactly.
Just changing the way you view relationship or yourselves.
I mean, if you see yourself as a victim, and this is another huge program, it's involved a lot in codependency and all kinds of stuff. Well, you're going to bring to you fixers and perpetrators. So if you work on your victim status and you get out of that program, get out of that cycle of victim, perpetrator, fixer, which is a huge program in psychology and life, all of a sudden now you're going to pull to you somebody likely who doesn't have that either. Or if they do, they can get out of it real quick. So that it's all about the quality of your own energy. And you'll be shocked and surprised, what you used to draw to you, what you used to pull to you, it immediately changes as you change.
Yeah, there's quite a few people actually in this audience who have experienced this already, in working and doing this inner work. Forgive me because we're going hopelessly over time. And there's so many questions, and I know for many of you have been bearing with us just, to get to this point now, about twin soul, twin flame questions, and we will answer them. So if you got to go, just go. All right, we'll continue here. We'll get to your personal questions right now, in a minute. So I just picked like the most frequently questions that we received here in regards to twin soul and twin flame. And that is, does my twin soul exist, in this plane, in this lifetime? And really what's behind that question, is there a chance that I will ever meet my twin soul? Well, if you've paid attention to the things that we talked about so far, you can actually answer that question yourself now. It depends on the quality of your own energy. There is a threshold in our energy that once we pass that, it sends out a trigger for that vibrational match, for your twin soul or twin flame to feel attracted to you on an energetic level. And that can overcome time and space, sometimes even dimensions. So sometimes we do have these vibrational matches, but not in this incarnation. But most of us actually do, especially those who feel, the existence of something like that, like sort of this inner yearning. Yeah, and I'm getting comments here. Don't worry about if you missed the beginning, you get the recording. All right, so don't worry if you have to leave now. Thank you so much for being here. We just keep going, okay, till we get to an end. Okay, when we reach the 2-hour mark, we'll stop though.
You get 15 minutes.
Okay. How to identify my twin soul? Probably the hardest question to answer. I've wrote a lot of articles about that, and there is a lot of stuff on the internet, and I don't know. I don't want to be judgmental, but most of it is really misleading. Okay, for those of you with a fairly well-developed energy, or for those of you who have energetic sensitivity and seek to work on that, my recommendation is work on your energetic understanding. Learn energies. Okay. Of course, I'm also offering these services. So there's a part of me that, of course, wants to let you know we're doing this kind of work. But with learning your own energy, you will be able to identify it right then, right there. There is no mistaking. The only problem is, and why there are so many people who experience so painful, or why they have so painful experience thinking they've met their twin soul, and why doesn't this work out, and so forth, is because of all this misleading and romanticized information out there. Meeting your twin soul is not special. It has nothing to do with the one and only. Okay, this is a very, very broad misconception, a very common misconception, in that whole notion of my purpose here is to find my twin soul, and then we're going to be together forever after, is completely BS, in my view. Twin souls can also come in form of children, can come in form of friends, and in complete different forms. So please don't get hung up on that idea. Whenever you begin to project that into your relationship, that's when you're steering towards the abyss. Okay, because then you are in the middle of a solar plexus connection with the other person. So the only way to answer that for yourself is, are you in your heart? Your heart is your navigator, and that will indicate this to you in a very clear way. There is no mistaking that. And the last question here, how to live as twin souls? Well, that's a really big field, and that's something that we'll probably have a separate webinar at some point. And I picked some questions here that go into this direction, and then I want to hear your personal questions. How do I cope with the anger from my twin soul, twin flame? Love is there, but the delivery is so harsh. The truth is harsh. And I end up resenting the message and the messenger. Okay, how can you get over these things even though you know that there was a really, really deep vibrational bond between you? Well, again, if you listened to the previous hour, you already know the answer. It's by working on yourself, working on your respect, working on your trust. You are a soul. He or she is a soul. What you need, she needs, he needs. You need space, they need space. You need trust, they need trust. All you can do is to find, your confirmation within, and your wholeness within, and which then allows you to give the other person space. The fine-tuning, the delivery, the communication, then is something you both need to work on together. Okay, here's a question. I won't be able to answer this. Thanks for asking, though. Why were twin souls created? Again, it's something that you can answer through listening to the recording or this webinar. Again, it's not that they were created. It's actually kind of a most natural state. It's just that when we incarnate in the physical, we basically split in half. We become polar. We become dual beings. This is sort of the classic dilemma of us souls in bodies, is that we incarnate into a dualistic being here in the physical. We are immortal. We're an immortal soul in a mortal body, and seen in a different from a different dimensional perspective, it's the inner split that we experience when we incarnate. And so the purpose for us here, in terms of consciousness development and connecting with our soul, with our true self, is to get as close as we can in our lifetime back to our original state. And for some of us, that means meeting our twin soul and living with our twin soul. Another question: when people genuinely get to meet their twin soul, do they both know what happens? Are they equally spiritual mature? Not always, but they typically know. They typically know. They may not have the same background. They may not have the same metaphysical or spiritual understanding, but they will both feel it. There is something beyond that solar plexus relationship aspect that becomes noticeable for both partners on a feeling level. It is not something that our ego mind, our intellect can grasp. So if you're thinking you're in a twin soul relationship, I hate to break it for you, but chances are you're probably not. This is not a thinking process. This is not something that you can go down a list of symptoms, and check, and okay, no, this is not how this works. Another question. Is my twin soul incarnate in this plane or this lifetime? Okay, we had this already. And if so, have I met him yet? Have I not? Will I? Those questions, come all the time, and we're not clairvoyant, so that I cannot help you with, but I can help you with some preparing your energy and working on yourself, so that, you are increasing your chances of meeting your vibrational match. And here's a last minute question that I really like that I added here just a few minutes before the webinar. Is it common for twin flames to be kept apart over several lifetimes? Is there a threshold or crossover point or sign when they can finally be together? Again, this sounds a bit romanticized, but I kind of hear the deeper question underneath that. And yes, there is such thing, but it's not the way you think it is. It's more based on your level of healing in your lifetime. So the closer you get to your true self, the more you basically transcend those dualistic aspects of your lifetime or of your incarnation in this lifetime. The more you transcend your karma, the closer you get to that threshold. Okay. I know this is not satisfactory for some of you, but this is kind of like where this is going. So every answer will be kind of related to that. And so finally, we've come to, the point where you can ask questions. So please, just so that we, don't go completely overboard, ask questions that we can answer, in that manner, and that allow us to, not to repeat ourselves, because some of the things we've already answered. And there is a question that is something that those of you who've done a lot of inner work and maybe experienced or familiar with out-of-body experiences and so forth, I want to warn you to engage in relationships out of body.
To not.
Yes, I want to warn you to not do that. Yeah. It doesn't matter whether it's your twin soul in a different dimension or not. This is not what you're here for. Okay? And there's an article I wrote about the dangers of energetic projection and out-of-body experiences. We are very, very firm on that. We do not recommend people to interact sexually, emotionally, in any way with any kind of being in any kind of altered state of consciousness. Chances are that you are being abused energetically, etherically. Chances are that this is not according to your higher purpose. I just want to leave this here that way because with increasing perception and energetic sensitivity, you may experience those things. No matter what these beings tell you, or how they look like, or how they portray themselves, chances are that your energy is being harvested or abused, or that you are receiving energetic implants or attachments through that. So for someone, like us working on clearing people's energy fields and so forth, that would probably be coming out of the left field a bit here, but I just want this to be very clear. We do not promote this. Was this too direct?
No, absolutely not. No, and those kind of things, I mean, trust me, it's usually creates issues. 99.9999999 repeating. So not too direct at all. Maybe frustrating for some people, I know, because it happens, but it's not the thing.
Thank you for your encouraging words. Yeah. It's very rewarding, offering this type of free webinar and getting this cool feedback from you. I know that we do not necessarily represent mainstream esotericism here. And this is the cool part in working with us is, that we look at things differently than most people do, and that you can gain a different perspective. So when you look at the essence of interaction between people and energies, you gain a perspective that is kind of like down to earth. It's just true. And do we have romance in our life? Do we love to be things the way we want them to? Of course we do. So having said these things and about specialness and romanticism and so forth, we can relate to that. We know that, but we also understand the dangers of it. And I just really want you to know that there is a platform for this. We're a safe space where you can work on this. With us, with others. And communicate. So if you don't have any live questions right now, then I would like. Okay, there's some questions coming in, but I will try to wrap it up here, like in a few minutes. Here another question: how does telepathy between twin souls work when they meet before meeting physically? Well, this is something that if you haven't really worked with energies yet, it seems all very mystical. But like I said in the beginning, the majority, like 85-90% of communication between beings, between people, actually happens in the unseen, in the unknown. And it's energy workers don't really call this telepathy. We call this exchange or downloads of energy. And this happens, this can transcend time and space because it happens in a holographic way, not in a linear way, like an electrical current traveling from here to there. And so this type of connection, really what you're talking about, we call these things sort of energetic link, or an energetic channel, if you will. They happen all the time. And it's not the way you communicate, like, say, in person as humans. It is based on energetic frequency and energetic resonance. Okay? This may not be satisfactory right now, this answer, but know that there is something like that happening all the time anyway, whether you're aware of it or not. All we do is really offer a platform here to learn how to decode these things, how to transduce these things, how to translate them. This is the word transcodes comes from that. We're helping you guys to decode, to translate, these kind of energetic interchanges. And they're not always just with benign energies, just so you know, but they're not always just with dark energies either. So this is something that you can learn, how to differentiate. Thank you for asking that question. I'm sorry if we talked a lot and couldn't really answer all the questions, but I'm so glad and so grateful for you sending in those questions ahead of time, because that allowed us to summarize things, to create clusters of questions. And I hope that we were able to address most of like what you want to know and why you came here. And somebody's asking something that fits right in here, just the answer with the last question: does this type of communication occur through the higher selves? Yes. And this is why we talk so much about connecting with your true self, with your higher self, and learning how to communicate on that level with yourself, because that allows you to become an active part in that communication with other true selves. All right. So yes, thank you so much for coming here, and just know that transCODES is a platform for self-healing, for working on these inner and outer aspects in ongoing group communication, group sessions. We even offer free group healings monthly. We have multiple online communities, and Jeff and I have created an online course, the 24 steps, that you can, where you can learn energy work, where you can work some of these aspects, those deeper aspects within yourself, with daily meditations, with coded sessions, with the workbook and so forth. It's called Sacred Self-Healing Course. We've created a boot camp, for people who are really serious and wanting to commit to that spiritual journey and like really being guided there, in the Heart Warrior program, where we take you on our hands, for 90 days with a lot of individual sessions, one-on-one sessions and so forth, and clearings and so forth, and guide you through those processes personally. There is a humongous amount of a body of educational articles and blogs at the transCODES website, the blog there. And we train people how to become energy coaches. That was also one of the frequently asked questions: how can I become an energy healer or a coach? We do offer trainings twice a year, and we take a group of people to train them, but we have quite a few prerequisites there, so please go read what the prerequisites are. We're expecting a certain level of inner work already been done, for the energy coach training, so we do not cover the basics there. We expect you to have certain things already in work. Yes, and so many more, and stay tuned, for occasional free webinars. Probably one of the most rewarding work is in the Sacred Self-Healing e-course, where we offer weekly, bi-weekly webinar meetings like that. The ongoing transmissions. I mean, we have probably like 20, 25 sessions a month. So there's really something going on almost every day. So come, join the forum, read posts from other people, participate. Just learn that you're not alone. Okay, learn that there's quite a few people out there who understand the kind of things that you are dealing with on your inside. Okay, and that there's a safe space to exchange those things. Right. Thank you all so much. Thank you for your trust, your time, your energy, for listening to us, and for coming here today, and for having the courage to ask questions. We're used to people typically not having the courage to speak into the microphone, so there's no pressure there. We just want you to know that that's an opportunity. And if you listen to some of the previous webinars, you will hear occasional people talking into the microphone. And there's check out the YouTube channel. Check out the transCODES Facebook site. There are some recordings there from previous meetings and webinars. Okay. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Have a wonderful day.